You want me to try? Oh.
Hello, welcome everybody to the Evolving Practice Podcast. I'm Dr. Bill Wass with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sean Carey.
And we have a very special guest for you today. And as we go, I think you're going to find out why. But we're here with Dr. Haley Arias. I'll probably slip up and call her Dr. Haley Thompson multiple times because that's how we first met. She's a chiropractor, now professor as well. And just this past month, at the beginning of April, she launched a new children's book. And she's had a pretty amazing story as far as how she got into the healing arts and how it's transformed over the years. She's a personal friend. I've known her since 2008. I met her pretty much my first week at chiropractic school, and we've been good friends ever since. So I'm excited. We are excited to welcome you to the show, Dr. Haley.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
So exciting.
Yeah. I mean, when I was counting the years before the show, I was like, we're like almost at 20 years since we first met. And
big chunk of life.
Big chunk of life. Yeah. So it's like, I know the different evolutions that you've had. And actually, Sean's known you for a very long time too. We all were coaching
Maybe it's
together.
been like 8 years for us or something like that.
Yeah. Around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking you were even a chiropractic speaker at the Berkshires years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yes. That was crazy experience too.
So you've had a wealth of kind of taking the stage and, and evolving along the way. That's kind of what this show's about. No one stays the same. We're always evolving. But how originally did you get drawn into the healing arts or chiropractic back? And maybe that takes us up to your story now, but take us back to the beginning, Haley.
Yeah. Well, I would say I was drawn to the healing arts because I probably had a serious need for healing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny how that happens. I had a really great chiropractor growing up, and I thought he was just so cool, right? And he was really into sports, and that really got me into chiropractic. But I remember getting to chiropractic school and thinking, what have I done? Like, I don't know that this is what I thought this was. And I remember going to a seminar. Remember, we went to Arnaud Bernier's seminar, and we were first quarter. So we really had no business putting our hands on anybody yet, but we were. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, yeah, this is unlike anything I've ever experienced, because there was so much love in that room and so much intention in that room that kind of sealed the deal for me, where I'm like, this is just different. There's something different about this. And that's really how I would say got into it more, because that first little bit, I was like, I don't think this is what I signed up for. I think I was almost looking for more of like a physical therapy route, and that's not and that's not the pod of friends that we were either. We kind of ended up so some of those seminars were like, oh no, this is definitely different, but this is definitely what I want to do, and where my heart is.
That's right. I forgot about that. I remember, I forgot about the fact that like you had more of a PT chiropractic kind of introduction, but I still think about that seminar quite often.
Yeah.
Did you ever do an Arnaud Bernier seminar, Dr. Sean?
I did, and it was very early on too.
Yeah.
And I remember, and it was like the MLS, right? And it was like the making love to the spine, was it? And it was that whole principle of just being in that moment and loving the person and the agape love.
Yeah. I do remember that having a big impact, and I was like, oh, this is definitely a factor in caring for people. It had a very, and I was so scared. I remember like just being terrified to adjust the cervical spine.
Totally. Yeah. I remember that too. Like, are we sure that we should be doing this yet? Are we sure? But it was great. And it was really great how it was great to be set up like that from the start.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it created a foundation that was built on something very different than what even a lot of the public perceives of chiropractic. And I
Yeah.
remember Jay Comerick had a seminar not shortly thereafter that we attended, and it was kind of a similar vibe, if you will, a similar understanding. So, that's a really helpful place, because I feel like even those two seminars that we did at the beginning of, they helped set the tone of like, what's behind the practitioner really, really matters in all this. And, I think that's what shined through when I first met you, was like, you always had a heart for the profession and serving people in a different way. And I know that's evolved for you as you've gone through, but I always kind of go back to the start with you.
Yeah. Well, and there was something I remember from Jay's seminar that's like carried through for me all these years. If you remember, he had us sit face to face with somebody, and I think it was like 5 minutes. It was a pretty significant amount of time to just stare in somebody's eyes. And I think we held hands. And at the time, again, I'm like, what are we doing? But I remember just crying like a baby, and it just broke me wide open. And I always remember that with patients who were struggling, especially like trauma patients and, those in grief and things like that, which is kind of where my journey's kind of evolved to, is that population. But I just always remember, like, look into their eyes, let them look into yours. And it was just made a profound difference in connections with people. It's slowing down in practice, and and now like slowing down and working with people in more than just just that adjustment setting, for just an adjustment, excuse me. And I just always go back to that, like, just look in their eyes, like, just slow down and look in their eyes, let them look at yours. And it's I don't know, that's always really resonated with me. Yeah.
Very uncomfortable. Like when you teed that up, you were like, oh, I always go back to that. I was like, I think I had to look into Justin Shoe Trump's eyes. Sean, do you know Justin?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think I had to stare in his eyes.
And he's what, like 6'4" or something like that.
Yeah,
so
I think they got me a stool, so I could do
it.
Yeah, it was super uncomfortable, but as we learn, as we get older, like, in those uncomfortable moments is like where the connection is, or like where the healing is, or where, so that one for me is still uncomfortable, but it's kind of a forced thing I do. So
yeah, it's even one of those things, if you can do it, it's like, what else can you do? Because it is really like intimate, vulnerable to be able to look into somebody's eyes and kind of do that. I kind of fast forwarding a little bit from our chiro. I mean, I think even when all of us met, let's say we really kind of rekindled a little less than 10 years ago through coaching and presenting, and we were all kind of traveling with chiropractic and going to different seminars. But I always remember having conversations with you, Haley, that it always seemed like that was just a stepping stone to kind of more for you, even in your searching within the profession of chiropractic, you were like, this is a foundation for what I do. Even, some of the ways that those seminars were, but you always seemed like you were looking to incorporate more of your own healing and more of what you knew into like what you could do to serve the world. So, don't catch us all the way up yet, but I remember just feeling that years ago, that you were always kind of looking to build upon it. Share where that came from, and what you were kind of looking to do.
Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up, because I shared with you all earlier, I was looking back through old planners, and I looked at all of the things we used to do, and so many seminars, so many networking things, and not that those things are not important, and but I I can look at that now and say, like, man, what were you searching for so hard that I was so booked out, and I was searching really hard for, like, where's my place in this, and what, I think I said it overnight, like, what's my thing? And I think I always knew what my thing was, but it wasn't super sexy, and it wasn't like, it didn't seem that cool, because it really came from, all my own pain, like, and all my family's pain. And for those who don't know, I lost my brother when I was 11 to a car accident. And I still would say that I had a really awesome childhood and a really great upbringing, but that definitely shaped our family dynamics, of course, like it would any family. And then about 10 years after that, we lost my dad to suicide, and that really, really rocked the foundation of the family. And so whenever I was in practice and I had my practice, the people I kept attracting were like these people with so much loss and so much pain. And it was really uncomfortable for me, because I just wanted to be professional, and I just, but I just kept attracting those people. And I think through all of my searching for everything, then it started, translating into helping those particular people. And, I know they say that you serve who you're meant to serve. And I truly feel like that, that was true for me. I had a young man in practice. I think he was in high school at the time, and we'll call him Ben. And he had recently lost his dad to suicide. And I knew it coming in. I had been prepped. But when he came in, I felt like sitting in that room talking to him, felt like I was finally able to, like, talk to myself. And there were so many things that he said to me that I was like, man, I've never talked like this with a patient, and I've never talked like this probably with anybody else. I don't think anybody else would get this the way you do, and he's in high school, and so what became really cool out of that experience, as awful as that was we kept in touch. And as I sort of started pivoting, and I created programs for families of suicide loss, and I would call on him and, like, help me write this, or what do you think about this? And can you talk through this with me? And I think we both, in the really weird pairing, helped each other probably the most. And that was, he's coming in because he's a lacrosse player, and he thinks that's what he's coming in for, and it ends up being totally different. And we've had this multi-year, he's moved on and he's out of college now, but we have this really cool relationship. Like, hey, I have this, like, new thing I want to do. Can I run it past you? And, it's really interesting.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are like the weird, or not the weird, but the weird, beautiful moments that came out of being in practice and starting to see people who I would have never thought that I wanted to see, or that wasn't who I was advertising to, for sure.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of even hard to advertise to directly. I remember having, like, marketing conversations with you. You're like, these are the people I like to work with. This is the people I like to serve. And they're, they have certain needs. As that showed up more and more, like, what were your kind of next steps in the, I obviously kind of know some of the progression of, you had moved out to Colorado and practiced there after. Did you practice in Georgia first, chiropractic?
I did for a little while. Okay. Yeah.
And then it was
very briefly.
okay. Yeah, because you're from Georgia. If
Yes.
people can't tell.
Yes, from Georgia, got a wild hair that I need to go to Colorado and practice in this practice that I had been to one time with Jay Kamerick,
Wow.
and then just, yes, I think I will move. Just totally random. But isn't it funny how those things happen? I mean, because I come here and I'm sure coming to Colorado had a lot to do with me running away from Georgia. I'm sure that there's a lot there. And then I come to Durango and Durango has a really high rate of suicide. And
do you know why that is?
I don't know why that is. And I don't know, kind of had some armchair theories, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, if this didn't follow me, if this, because we were in school and we were just go and just as hard as we could. And I think that was great for me at the time, but I also I wasn't processing things, and I was having probably a little bit too much fun, and, and then school's over, and then it's like, what are you going to do with this? And so when I came out here to Colorado and that was kind of in my face, it was like, okay, I guess I gotta start working on me. And so it did feel like the more that I helped, the more I healed. And so the more I saw those patients and the more that I was having those conversations, and I was not seeing, the amount of patients that I wanted to see because I was spending so much time with them, So they were very lengthy visits, but they were deep, and it just kept kind of evolving from there. And, writing the programs for those families and running those classes, and, until, it was the last time I saw you guys in 2020, right before COVID. My husband and I were trying to get pregnant, and who knew that it just doesn't always happen that easy. Like a couple glasses of wine does not equal a baby. I didn't know.
I did. Yeah. They tell you, like, when you're a kid, right? They just, like, if you look at a girl the wrong way, she's gonna get pregnant. Totally. And then here we are. I'm like 37, and now I'm at my second one. But it definitely took a lot more work than
totally. And so I remember being at that place where I was like, I kind of feel like I'm at this juncture of what I want to start a family, and we want to do this, and so I kind of started my exit from chiropractic, and I knew there was going to be, I knew that I needed to devote some time to just like my own health. And so I did, and we did several years of IVF and several years of like failed IVF treatments and losses along the way. And that kind of got me to this place of just kind of like surrender, because I felt really, I would say I felt really beat down after like all the loss, and like, okay, again, we're here again, and I remember like this moment of like this really vivid moment. I'm laying on the table in the doctor's office, and he was so cute. He was like this cutest little old man doctor down in Albuquerque, and I just love him. His name's Dr. Thompson, and we swear we're long lost cousins. And but I said, okay, I mean, can you just do anything different? Can we do something different this time? Because we were on our third try. And I was like, can you just do something different? And the minute I said it, I was like, oh, I could probably do something different.
Wow.
And then it was like, from there, it was like, you better you better stop being so angry about everything. You better like put, your own health first. And there was a lot of like deeper work, and that next embryo transfer worked. And I mean, I don't attribute it to anything else other than my higher power said, finally, like God said, finally, like you just gave it to me. I've just been wanting you to do that all along.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
And so that's where this children's book was born from.
Okay. Can you tell us more about the children's book?
Yeah. So when we lost our first embryo and our first baby, and I had never let myself think that it wouldn't work. I had never let myself, I thought you paid all this money and like you got a baby. And that's not exactly how it worked either. You don't drink wine and you don't just pay the money.
That would have been a better book, an easier book, right?
Yeah. Totally. And so I remember sitting out on our back porch, not being able to sleep after we had that loss. And I remember looking up at the stars and just being like, where is she? Like, I'm not ready to let this go. I'm not ready. I mean, at the time that was the only embryo we had. So, I was like, I'm not ready to let her go. And so I sat on the back porch and I wrote this children's book, and I was like, I've been here before. I remember being 11 years old, and I remember looking at the stars, and I remember trying to pick out one that was my brother that I could like remember which one it was so I could come back and like talk to him every night. And I did that in however old I was, in my mid-30s, and I'm like, here I am as a grown woman. I don't know what else to do, and I'm doing this again, and so I wrote this children's book sitting on the back porch that night, and I showed it to Matt, my husband, a couple days later, and he was like, you have to do something with this. You have to do it. And then we lost another baby, and I put it on the shelf for a while, and but I guess last year, it got picked up by a publisher, and so it's been kind of an amazing thing, because it's amazing on one hand because something so cool came out of like so much pain, but then at the same time, you're like, for the people that it's really resonating with means that they're actually hurting, and that's hard too. But to know that there's, that it is changing the way families are talking about loss, and in my family we didn't talk about it. My family, it was, we'll pay for you a therapist, but like, we're not going to talk about it. And I think that's so common in families, and so that's why I created the book, because it was like, it can go two ways. You can talk about it and you can become closer because of that, or, there's fractures that happen when there's loss in a family can get deeper. And so that was my goal, was this to be a bedtime story conversation, and change the way families are talking about loss together.
That's awesome. What is the title of the book?
It's called When I Can't See You.
You have it? Oh, amazing.
I love it.
So
and that cover is like stunning too.
The artist that did the drawings, she took my little girl pictures, and that was me from one of my little girl school pictures.
Oh my gosh.
She is phenomenal, and she took it and brought it to life. I never could have imagined what it could have been. And there's like the sketches behind me were some of her like rough drawings. I'm like, your rough drawings are like the most beautiful things in my house.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you just launched it, right? It's out now.
Yep. April 1st was our like release date. So yeah, it's in stores now and on Amazon.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you have like additional promotion that because you know how to market and you know how to go talk to people from all those days of lunch talks and running around busy. Like, do you have a schedule a little bit with it, or what? Kind of tell us more about this new life that's kind of unfolding for you.
Yeah, well, it's really crazy because I never, what started as like, sure, I'll give it a shot, is now I have a Barnes and Noble tour around Colorado all summer and into the fall. And yeah, it's really cool. So I'll be in Telluride July 4th, which they don't have a Barnes and Noble, but I'll be in Boulder and Fort Collins and Colorado Springs and Grand Junction. And I'm also going to, I think, do some down in St. Augustine, Florida. And yeah, there's just, it's kind of
nice.
It's really, we're filling in our calendar for this year with stuff we didn't know we were going to be doing. But what's really cool is, the PR firm that's, helping me. And we had a call today and she was like, we don't usually get this response. She's like, we usually get a lot of no's. And so for me, I'm like, when I wrote the book and I had a call with the publisher, I emailed her and she said, I'm very interested in this. Let's talk tomorrow. And so we had a call, and I just remember sitting at my desk before that call and praying, like, I just want this to help people and to bring families closer. And please help me take myself out of it, and if it's, I just want this to land in the right families, and it's more than I could have ever expected.
That's awesome, Haley. That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Haley, it's so crazy. It's like you're living a completely different life than the last time I saw you.
I know. And what's so crazy is I like never would have dreamed all of this. I never like let myself believe that it like would have been possible. And I never, I just never thought that this would come to fruition or it would be anything. And, now I've sort of shifted into more of like the coaching side of things, and I'm, not seeing as many patients. And it's just, that's not something I thought I wanted to do. That's not something that so it's just interesting how just saying yes to stuff over the past couple of years. I just remember like when I was laying on that table and I wanted the doctor to do something different, and I just heard it clear as day, like, maybe you should do something different. It was really that impetus for me. Like, just say yes to stuff, just take some risks, just take some chances. Like, don't be so scared. Don't wait for permission. Like, I feel like that was a big part of my journey too. Like, I loved chiropractic, but I felt like I got this degree and this is what I'm supposed to do. And somebody's got to give me permission to step outside of it. And it was like, no, I don't have to. There's nobody going to do that. Nobody's ever going to do that. So you can either just do something different or not. So
One
Yeah.
of the things I really admire about you too, and respect with what you're doing, is there's this essence that you're willing to like go to the places that other people just either completely
Mm,
block or run away from. You know, 'cause we
Mm.
talk about that level of pain that you've been through, and like, I work with many different people. Sometimes when people have pain like that, it just kind of breaks them.
mhm,
And there's nothing about you that's like you've learned how to make yourself stronger through not running from the pain and letting it fester and letting it break you apart like a cancer, because I think most people do that or end up going to addiction,
Mm.
without, and people don't know how to meet that depth of pain. Like there's not that many people who've experienced it, and you have, and you're pulling those souls back to hope.
mm,
Well, that is very kind of you to say that. I do remember there was a couple instances in chiropractic school, which that was pretty soon after my dad had passed away. And that
mm,
was, I would say I was kind of in a free fall during those years. And I'm super grateful for like the close friendships that I had and just the schedule, the rigor of like being
yeah,
in school and
Yeah.
stuff. But there was some pretty poor choices made during those years. I can say that for sure. But I do remember there was a couple of big moments saying like, here's your fork in the road.
Yeah.
mhm,
Like you can keep going this way and you can go all the way because you've got like all the things behind you that will keep pushing you that way,
Yeah.
or like you can like make a choice and do something different. Um, and that really did come down to like making a conscious choice of like doing something different because I knew I had everything behind me that I could have easily,
mm, mhm,
Yeah.
gone down addiction route,
Yeah.
um, and just general unhealth.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember like you have always had this, and maybe you not recognize this or not. I feel like you have this fall forward kind of movement where a lot of times, like Sean was saying, like we've all seen this where people get really stuck, right? And it's like even though maybe you were making choices that were bad, like you kept this forward momentum in a way that like you were always unfolding to this, I believe,
Mm.
and I remember even from the beginning of this conversation where you're like, I went to chiropractic school for one thing and then bam, it's like, no, this is a
Yeah.
whole different world that I hadn't seen. And I remember you ended up going to Colorado after like, you kind of hit a point you were like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing in this place. And I was like, why don't you come to DE, which we've all been to DE, and you
Oh,
and Jay and Clay and Petra, who hadn't been there for like years, were there, and that kind of catalyzed that moment. And I remember you calling me and be like, I don't know how to or what to do, and then it was like you started coaching. You were always like moving forward, and I
Yeah.
don't think I think you're providing some of that help now for others that you sought
yeah.
through your network to kind of like punch you forward when you were like
Mm.
hitting
Yeah.
those stuck points. And whether or not you realize it, I actually feel like everything you're doing now is you were doing it in a way that maybe was a little less calculated and a little more um what's the word for it, destructive. But I think you were
Sure.
like always falling forward to like with that momentum where half the world gets totally stuck in a
Yeah.
situation from that trauma. You just kept moving forward until you were transformed it for yourself, so you're doing it for others now, which is really commendable and big. So um
Well,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting that you say that because I certainly would not have looked at it that way, but it's so great to have that perspective, right? Because sometimes we look back and we're like, what was I thinking? Or what was I doing?
Yeah.
But it's so that's a really fresh take that I'm gonna hold on to that.
Amen. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I do. I think like you always had it in you too. Like you knew that you wanted to put a board together and you wanted to reach more
Yeah.
of people who've dealt with this type of loss. And now you have the book. What are the other ways in which you're using your gifts and this message now? I know we had conversations, but I don't know all the ways that you're kind of evolving or what's next with kind of what you're doing besides the book tour?
Yeah. So yeah, the book tour is like big, but I will say, I got some other like book projects I've been asked to collaborate on, which is really cool. Also unexpected. And then just like from the coaching side of a thing, I have a couple clients that I'm working with that have some pretty big traumas too. And one thing that I feel is different, from like the coaching and counseling perspective, because I'm always going to have a counselor, like always, like on speed dial. But I think like the difference with like the coaching and counseling is like the counseling and therapy side is more like that education. Like they went to school to like get these things. And I am like, I got to have that to, like in my life. But like I've always kind of had a coach too, because the coaching side is more from the experience side. And what I'm learning working with people is how much like they already know the answers and how much people like I don't remember who said it. I think I might be misspeaking, but it might have been Coco Chanel. I remember on my Facebook. Remember when Facebook they give you a little like bio strip underneath your picture?
Yeah.
And it was really like everybody put a quote.
Yeah.
And I thought I was so just witty and cool. And I remember, the saying is like less is more. And I put less is a bore.
Yeah.
And I feel like I really lived by that for most of my life until fairly recently. And I'm like, no, I think less is really more. I think somebody had it right. But just like working with those clients and people, and it's like I don't have to be the expert. And I've spent so much of my career trying to prove to like my patients and especially in those early years that like I'm the expert and I know, and I'm the professor and I know, and and it's like, but I don't have to know because most people actually do know. But what I find interesting is what you guys were just talking about, how people want to hold on to their traumas.
Yeah.
They want to like hold on to it, and they want to like hold on to their stories. And I think I did too for a really long time, because I was so afraid that without it, like, who would I be? Because it was so much of it. I mean, it shaped so much of who I was. So if I like got off it, like, who was I, And it's interesting. I see that in other people, and it's like, oh, okay. Like, you're just not ready to like let that go. And I try to, all these things are like big defining moments of our life. There's no way that it's not going to shape us. It's not going to like, direct our paths and stuff. But I think so often we just let it define us instead of let it just be that moment, let it be the defining moment. It's it's like, oh, this is all I am now. And that's a sad place to be. And so trying to work with people to really see, like, it's okay if you let that crack a little bit, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but that is where the light comes in.
Yeah. And there's nothing. Yeah, and there's nothing like glamorous about holding on to pain too, because sometimes it's like people can like have a distorted view of pain and loss, where it's like, that's all I have of the person is the pain associated with the person. Which it really isn't true. Like it's not the truth. Like if the person lets that go, then underneath there's the love and all the memories. But it's like that pain can be something that's really held on tightly for like guilt too. For not knowing who they are, and they've just been experiencing so much pain that's all they remember. But Yeah, the way out is exactly what you're saying.
There's a line in my book, and this is a kid's book for adults too, you know. And there's a line in the book that it's kind of a dialogue between, you know, the child and the person they've lost. And so it's kind of this like back and forth is kind of the format I wrote it in. And I said the line in the book is the little girl saying, please know that I still care.
Mm.
And what I was meaning by that was even when I'm playing or working or doing all the things and I'm not just sitting around sad or I'm not crying, like, will you still know that I like loved you and cared about you? And then the response back is, yeah, I'll know because of all of the memories we share. I'll know that you care, you know. And it was, to me, that was such a strong, as a child, I just remember thinking, like, if I'm not thinking about my brother all the time, or if I'm not talking about him, or if I'm not, you know, then I don't love him, or he thinks that I don't love him, or, you know, and I'm not keeping his memory alive, right? And I didn't realize how much of that I carried into like the rest of my life whenever loss, you know, showed up. I didn't realize. And I was talking to my therapist about it, and I said, you know, I thought it's a big emotion for kids. And she was like, that's a big emotion. You know, that's a big thing for everybody, is holding on to it as like you said, like as a keeping their memory alive type thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
It almost
was
feels like keeping that memory, there's not room for the other memories when you're
so
like,
true. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the ancient alchemists, they used to go and alchemists meaning that they turned lead into gold is like kind of the mythology, but really it was about turning the lead of the soul into gold. So it was like turning that lead, like the deepest pain, the deepest disconnection, the deepest suffering, and turning that into like enlightenment, into godliness, into divinity. And the most potent alchemy, oftentimes the alchemists would find like the worst horse manure, if you will. Like it's the grossest stuff. It's like the most dense, gross material that if properly guided, it actually can become the most beautiful thing. So it's like, you know, when somebody has depths of pain, like we're talking about, like if it can be guided and brought back to light, and you can give it to God, you know, instead of wielding it as a weapon against the self.
Yeah.
Like it's just such profound goodness that can come from it, which is what you're doing, I think, and it's just so cool to see.
Yeah, it's funny because you know, thinking about like the spiritual side of things, and I don't know that we can have true healing like without that, right? Because it's like everything comes from source, and that's whatever, you know, for me it's God. For that could be different for anybody, but that's like that source energy, right? And if everything comes from that, then it's completely unnatural not to rely on that in, you know, for our healing. And so I just find that so interesting because I personally went through that. You know, I went through, like, I am just so angry. You know, I'm just so angry at God. I'm so angry at everybody. So angry at every pregnant woman I see, you know, just all of it. And that thinking like, well, what if I did something different? Like, what if I tried to not just be so mad, you know, like, and not raging at people on the, you know, on the highway, and, you know, just finding any opportunity to be mad. Like, what if I do something different? And what if I just, even if I'm not sure, and even if I don't know that I believe, like, what if I just start reaching out again to God? Like, what, you know, and so I just started doing that little by little. And I remember saying, like, I don't know that I believe in you anymore, but I need somebody to talk to. You know, and and then it's like, things just felt lighter, and so it feels unnatural not to rely back on that if that's, where it all comes from anyway.
Yeah. I don't think people can go through like a loss like that. When I was a child, my mother had a brain tumor. She survived, but she was never really the same afterwards. It was like she had a severe stroke, and there was a lot of trauma with it. But I was so mad at God too. And, so it's probably like 8 years from like 10 to 18 where it was like, I wasn't sure if I believed in God or not, but if like God was real, like I don't, I was too mad at God to have a relationship kind of. And I think a lot of people do that. And like to have to try to do it without like spirit, there's such a severe loss. So often there's a ripple with that somebody's going to be mad or upset with God, or they're going to try to pull away from God. And it's like that piece really has to be addressed for full healing.
Yeah. I just remember whenever I was little and my brother died, I overheard a conversation, and I think it was my mom saying she was so mad at God. And we always, grew up in a very Christian household, and I couldn't even believe I was hearing that. And I remember hearing that, and I remember whoever she was talking to said, "Oh, well, that's okay. Don't you think God can handle that?" And I just remember like holding on to that, like throughout all of this, for me to be like, oh, God can handle that. And he's going to be there whenever I decide that I'm ready to talk or like I'm ready to like come back type thing, I cling to that. Even sometimes, something will come up and I'm like, I want to know, I want to know why. I want to know like why this happened. And it makes me really mad. And, and it's like, well, that's okay. Like God's okay with that. He's, And so I feel like holding on to that, like almost makes it, I mean, for me, it just made it a little bit more okay that I could have the emotions that I had and know that was okay too. And that was natural too.
Yeah. Really well said.
Yeah, that is. And the one part I love that you reflected on is, in every moment you were like, you always said to yourself, like, okay, well, it was like you were reflective of like, what are the results I'm actually getting in my life? And then you were like, oh, what can I do differently? Like I'm here, I'm working with God to do something different. And now it's my opportunity to, to make the change, make the shift. And, it's been neat to see how you do that within each and every moment. So, well, with this, what's next for Haley, for Dr. Haley?
Well, I have launched my coaching business, and so I have an event this summer that is called Good Grief, and it's a women's tea and guided journaling day, and just to connect with other women and people who are going through some of the same things. And then I'm kicking around like some group coaching stuff. I've always done the one-on-one stuff. So I'm kicking around maybe a group starting in the fall. But that's, that's what I have going on. Mom, got my little boy's 2.5. Doesn't look anything like me. I mean, he has like white blonde hair. I promise he's really mine though. And, he's absolutely wild. And, so just trying to really stay present with that and playful and, being okay with getting peed on a lot. Cause we're he's like, I peed. I'm like, where? He's like, in your shoe. I'm like, you did.
Oh my gosh. So good.
You're so cute. I can't get mad about it.
Yeah. Who'd be more like, you or Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, that's coming soon for you. The random peeing all over the house.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we don't have good aim, you know,
Yeah.
like girls, my daughter, she doesn't do this. She doesn't do this stuff. Like I walked into my practice bathroom the other day and I was like, what the hell happened here? What is going on? And then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it was that little boy.
I know. No, he truly does. He pees on everything and so proud of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a male thing. We grow out of it sometimes. It's so funny. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
He goes, I gotta share this with you because you'll find it funny. You know, he's like, what do little boys have? I'm like, all day, 1,000 times a day. What do little boys have? I'm like, you know what little boys have? They have a penis. He's like, what's my penis doing? I'm like, I don't know. I have no clue. Your pants, it better not be doing anything. I don't know.
That is the mystery of the universe. If that question could be answered, that'll be the next podcast when we check in with you. When we check in. So awesome.
So I've been fielding the hard questions like that, and then
that's good. You've always been able to keep laughing, so that's really and with kids, it really makes it that much easier to like tap into it. So what
you have to, or all you'll do is cry.
I know. What an appropriate way though, like that. You didn't just write a book; you wrote a children's book. Like what a beautiful way to kind of like tie your whole message of the grief and your life and a testament to it. So and keep laughing because you've always kind of kept that childlike excitement, joy, and playfulness that I think will, you know, I believe will continue to serve you on in all the ways that you'll continue to evolve with the work that you're doing. So it's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Sound awesome.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. What's the best way? Because you have we're going to include in our show notes the best way to get in contact with you. But what's the best way to get your book? And what's also the best way to like follow Haley Arias?
Yeah. Well, you can go to my website, drhaleyarias.com. You can buy the book there. You can also buy it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any of those. But you should buy it from my website. And you can get in touch with me through my website as well. Sorry, Sean.
Would you just spell your name in case people, because we have a lot of people listening on Spotify and
yes,
like that.
Yeah, so it's drhaleyarias.com.
Thank you. Awesome.
And then it's also Dr. Haley Arias on Instagram if you want to follow as well.
So good.
Amazing. What an incredible conversation. And it's so exciting to see what you're producing and creating.
I'm super grateful for the opportunity, not only just to talk to you guys, but just for the opportunity to share the book and what's going on. It's like, I'm really grateful.
Awesome. Well, it's been so good having you. We'll have to do it again. Like it definitely feels like one that we'll want to check in down the line. And it's funny because I don't think we've spoken in a while, and it's really amazing to just see like how much you've grown and, you know, kind of connected some of the dots in your journey and just kind of keep moving forward. So we're really grateful that you took time to be on our show. Super excited for your success and when we check in down the road. So thanks again for being a guest of ours, and we're excited to see what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Lots of love to you.
Yeah, you too.
Love to you. Thanks again, and we'll see you real soon.
Perfect.